Hey guys, Ange here. I'm going to read a little bit from Sparks Road. I'm actually going to read my favorite chapter from this book. And I know everybody thinks that I like the steamy scenes the best. I mean, I do like a good steamy love scene if it's tasteful. And the one in this book is really great. There's actually a couple in this book that's really, really great. But they aren't my favorite, actually. Surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, my favorite story in this book is Brandy's story. And so you can sort of see the four sisters here. This sister here in the middle, this is Ellen. She's the author of the book, my co author, I should say. It's her life story. But next to her is her sister, Brandy. And her story just resonated with me on a lot of levels, and you'll see why in a second. It's really short chapter, but it's so good. You guys are gonna love it. So good. It's chapter 27. Take me to church. Nina could have just as easily been one of our many parents were it not for the difference in skin pigmentation. We loved her and frankly needed her. She took care of the house, the children, and the parents sometimes. She loved to make a little boat out of a bed sheet, put the children in it, dragging us all around the house to our squeals of delight. How she managed the strength to pull so many kids at once, I will never know. For the first 8 years of Brandy's life, Nina was as much at the center of her life as any of us. Though Nina loved Jennifer, Glenda, and me, there was something special about her bond with Brandy. Of course, part of it was due to logistics. The rest of us left the house for school, leaving Brandy in Nina's care. But logistics soon turned to love, and Brandy and Nina grew closer and closer. Brandy never knew there was a lick of difference between Nina and herself. She never even noticed Nina as black and herself as white. She just saw Nina as family. The sound of her coming through the front door overwhelmed Brandy with joy. Nina picked Brandy up when she fell down, fed her delicious food, and scolded her like every Southern mama knows instinctively how to do. When our parents left town on the weekends, or my sisters and I were carted off to the homes of our other parents, Brandy got some extended time with Nina. Nina took Brandy everywhere she needed to go on the black side of town. No one there seemed to notice or care about her light skin, blonde hair, and blue eyes. She was just another kid in a community of proud Black families in the neighborhood, just another child to be loved. One of her favorite places to go was Nina's church. There, weathered grandmas with purses stuffed with candy stood at the ready to reward any child with a smiling face and plump cheeks for pinching. There were husbands of these lovely ladies with marriages that had lasted more decades than Brandy could fathom. Men with hands of leather from working and raising families. Young dads shuffled their kids into the church building on Sunday morning, lining them up on hard pews and warning them to be good this time. Stunning Black women in flowered dresses wore their hair in cornrows or big afros. Others had locks coiffed into beehives piled up on their heads, perfect for making eyes at the boys on the other side of the aisle. Nina was just impressed every Sunday with her short black hair all done up for Sunday service, looking out at the congregants over black glasses, walking in with Brandy in tow, this little white girl. No one could ever convince Brandy that she wasn't Black herself for years. Even the mirror was declared a liar. In her mind, she was a Black girl. And she held that opinion until the age of 6, convincing herself that she had some sort of skin disease that stripped her of her chocolate brown that she loved so much about Nina. Besides, our family's last name was Black. That clinched it for Brandy. Though the church was far from new, it showed the love and care of its members. Walls painted white, the old floor shined to a mirror finish, and accents of green along the baseboards and shutters. On the east wall, a picture of Jesus as white as Brandy adorned the wall. Ushers in clean uniforms, pure white gloves, and polished shoes greeted her with a smile. The room erupted with sounds that soon became familiar to Brandy. A boisterous greeting of "Praise the Lord" was followed by "Howdy do." The precious moments before the start of service seemed reserved for catching up on the lives of others. "How's your mama doing?" "Oh, fair to middling. She'll be back to her old self in no time, Lord willing." Well, I'm going to stop by after church and see her. Made her some of my best chicken and flat noodle soup. Have her back to feeling fine in no time. The prominent noise in this space was laughter and music. The musicians warming up their instruments, fingers, lips, and feet dotted the atmosphere with amazing sounds. A drum strike here, a guitar strum there, followed by an arpeggio on a Hammond organ, producing an array of notes so crisp one might have thought their skills had been honed in a Juilliard classroom. Of course, these musicians had not been classically trained. This was talent and expertise perfected by the Spirit. Only God and time could create musicians so skilled who played in such synchronicity, they needed no music stands covered in sheet music to know what to play, that would send hands flying in the air in praise and eyes filling with joyful tears. Little brown eyes with wonder stood around each musician, watching and wishing they were good enough to play an instrument in the main service. Little fingers snapped back when mother scolded them not to touch. But these children were the next generation of instrumentalists. Kids in this community learned to play with their eyes and heart long before they ever touched an instrument. That is how it was in this noble circle. Some things were taught, but most things were caught. The service started with the booming voice of the preacher, calling everyone to order and offering the same welcome he had for nearly a decade. The same one the preacher who preceded him had said. Continuity mattered here. It gave people comfort in an unpredictable, sometimes dangerous world as people of color. Brandy was a girl in two very unique kinds of families, with Nina at the bridge between the two. Nina was as much a link as Brandy was. They belonged in both families, loved both, needed both. Brandy pitied every poor soul who didn't have what she had. But while Brandy had the luxury of leaving one part of her life and returning to her mostly white existence, free of threats to life and limb, this part of her family, the Black part, could not in the 60s and 70s of the Southwest. The precious moments spent in church were among the safest they knew, and they relished every second of being together, sometimes staying at the church house or the neighboring fellowship hall most of their Sunday. Oh, the fellowship hall. The smells from this glorious place wafted up and down the aisles, tempting people to give up praising God long enough to fill their forks with baked macaroni and cheese, candied yams, and fresh greens. It wasn't uncommon for a chicken to be clucking in the morning and on the dinner plate by supper time. These unparalleled cooks could relieve a chicken of its head with their bare hands. They reserved their love for the cooking, not the bird. And the food was mouth-meltingly wonderful. Week after week, Nina and Brandy left church saying goodbye as the congregants showered her with hugs and kisses, along with promises to see her next week. Week after week, being out and about with Nina was always adventurous as she took her trips around town, to the market and other places. When Brandy went out with her own mother, Linda, they would often see people who knew Nina. But to know Nina was to know Brandy. So the ladies would stop and talk to her like they were old friends, much to Linda's constant surprise. She would chuckle every time it happened because she underestimated how deeply immersed Brandy was in Nina's world. Then, one fateful day, half of Brandy's world ground to a screeching halt. Our parents announced that they no longer needed Nina to come cook, clean, and take care of Brandy. Somehow, Brandy had accidentally broken the contract between Nina and herself. Brandy's job was to stay young forever, so Nina would have to keep coming to care for her forever. But Brandy grew up, and it was time for her to go to school, and time for Nina to find work elsewhere. Brandy couldn't contain her fury when our parents broke the news that Nina had been let go. The whole family loved her, but Brandy needed her. She even threatened never to talk to our parents again for firing Nina. As she matured, though, Brandy realized that she would have prepared for the day to come. She should have prepared for the day to come when Nina was no longer needed. Always wanted, just not always needed. Brandy had us, her three older sisters, who were perfectly capable of feeding her, clothing her, and picking her up when she fell down. It soon became clear, however, that there was another motivation behind Nina's firing. My family was pouring their money into my dad's music career. Nina did not come cheap and was therefore replaced by a woman named Miss Murta, who only came occasionally to clean. The truth is that Miss Murta was a better housekeeper, doing twice what Nina did, but she paled in comparison to the angel who made up in love what she may have lacked in cleaning skills. The memories of Brandy's life with Nina remain vivid in her consciousness. In many ways, Brandy was a character in a movie who could go through a secret portal and enter another world, a magical world of color, community, and song. I hope you love that as much as I did. Get the book, Sparks Road.